Hi, and welcome to Let's Talk ASPM. My name is Mark Lambert, Chief Product Officer here at ArmorCode. And today what we're going to talk about is risk scoring, why it's important, and what you need out of a risk scoring framework so that you can use it effectively. So first of all, why is risk scoring important? Well, the real reason that risk scoring is critical is not just to communicate to leadership about what your organization's security posture is all about or where you stand today, but it's also important primarily for prioritization of work, because at the end of the day, we want to focus on work that's going to have the biggest impact, and our impact is obviously directly correlated with the risk. Now, the problem is today, as an industry, we are bombarded with findings, vulnerabilities, and alerts from across our tool ecosystem. And each of those tools are treating things slightly differently. So you might have kind of like some scoring coming from, your application security tools and some other scoring from your infrastructure security tools. And you're trying to figure out how to normalize this together so that you can really, as I said, work on the most business efficient tasks. And at the end of the day, that is our job. Our job is to mitigate risk and do it in the most effective way possible for the business. This is further compounded, but we got this volume of data, but you're also, your security and development need to collaborate on this. So as far as security perspective, it's our job to curate and triage and then give the things to the development team which are truly critical and priority, so that we're not distracting them with lots of notifications, lots of disruptive work. And at the end of the day, development teams don't want to release insecure applications, but their primary focus is delivering value to the business. So they're focused on delivering functionality. So if we're giving lots of disruptions and a growing backlog, we're not going to see the progress that we want to be able to see. So what do we need to do? Well, first of all, many organizations will start with leveraging CVSS base scoring, using MVD as a source of a curated base score that we can use to then prioritize vulnerabilities. However, that is only one source. It also is orientated towards a published vulnerability, a CVE. It's not orientated necessarily around a vulnerability that we've discovered in our own application, maybe through penetration testing or red teaming. It also doesn't take into account weaknesses. So when we're looking at a risk scoring framework, we need to take all of those things into account when we're determining what our technical score is of a finding. Now, the other thing when we're talking about is CVE, and we're able to leverage threat intelligence to further refine and improve that scoring. So leveraging threat intelligence to know if something is exploited, looking at something like a 𝗙𝗵𝗿, for example, looking at deep dark web, seeing if there's any traction on something that's going to indicate that something is a potential exploit, leveraging EPSS, the predictability scoring framework, that gives you the ability to be able to predict that something may pop and have an exploit. So taking all of those things into account will help us prioritize the findings and associated vulnerabilities that are higher from a technical perspective. The things that have got the bigger risk when we just look at the finding and associated vulnerabilities or weaknesses within that context. However, that's missing another component, which is our business context. So when we think about a particular vulnerability, and let's take the simple one of a CVE with a high base score that's got an active exploit, what do we want to do with that? Well, if we are working on a business critical application that's front facing, maybe has compliance requirements, handling sensitive data, all of these attributes put this into a tier 1 category. So this is like my high risk or high value business asset. That is going to be more important than something that is not customer facing. Maybe it doesn't have a compliance requirement. There's no sensitive data within there. Those types of assets or projects can run on a different cadence, a different SLA, service level agreement. So what we want to be able to do is to tune our risk score and therefore our prioritization and therefore the escalations of our triaging practices. We want to be able to tune it on the technical aspects, be able to tune it on threat intelligence, so we know kind of like what's a real thing versus what is something that is a potential problem. And then we also want to tune it on the business context. Now, we also need to figure out how to normalize this across all of our different security tools. So this is really where ArmorCode comes in with our adaptive risk scoring. So we're able to create this risk score across all of the 230 plus different integrations that we have, taking data all the way from threat intelligence, threat modeling, application security tools, all the way through cloud, container, and institutional vulnerability management, and even endpoint detection. Taking the raw data that we're getting from those source tools, categorizing the finding based upon if it's a published vulnerability, if it's a vulnerability that's found through pen testing or bug bounty programs, if it's a weakness, giving it a technical score, augmenting that with threat intelligence, and then also applying the business impact in a uniform way across the entire tool set. Now, this scoring is adaptive as well, meaning that it changes. But I think we'll get into that in the next episode. So in the meantime, if this is something you'd like to learn more about, check the link below. We've got a link to our new white paper around our adaptive risk scoring that talks through these attributes as well as gets into the detail with some actual examples of how the risk score adapts based upon its context. So with that being said, stay safe. Check out the link below. As always, if you like this channel, click like, subscribe. Thank you very much for watching, and we'll see you in the next episode when we'll talk about adaptive risk scoring and what it means to adapt your risk score.